Hi there, I'm Christy. Welcome to my channel. If you are new, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're returning, it's great to see you here again. Today's video, I am going to be sharing with you my top 10 fast growing, heavily producing vegetables that you can grow in your garden. I live in a climate where we have a 100-day growing season, but our evenings are really cool, which means that we don't have a typical growing season here. We have very long days, but it's very much a challenge to grow food here. So I have narrowed down my list of vegetables that are really high producers that do fantastic in a very short season. So what does that translate to? Why would you want to know these things? Well, maybe you want to grow as much food as you possibly can. Say there's something that happens that you need to be able to produce as much food as possible. This is a great list to have because not all vegetables are this quick of growing. There's certain vegetables that have been bred or hybridized in order to have these productions in such a short turnaround time. So I'm going to share my top 10. They're going to be categorized in early season, short season, or all season. You can kind of manipulate the growing season with these varieties. They don't have to be grown in one specific season. They can be grown in multiple seasons, but there are factors to consider, like pest and disease that could occur because of the temperature and the climate, how it does affect them. So we are going to start with the cool season seeds, varieties that are in my top 10 list. Since we're starting in spring, we may as well, spring is just around the corner. So let's start with the spring season. Now, most of my spring season seeds come from West Coast Seed, but there are other places that you can get these varieties at. You might just have to research a little bit. And remember, I am in Canada. However, these varieties are not limited to Canada. You can alternatively, if you could not find them in the country you're living in, you could likely order in Canada and get them shipped to you. I do know most companies that sell seeds here do ship fairly internationally, so there's that. But before we get started, I wanted to just say thank you so much to one of our subscribers, Mary. Thank you for sending me this wonderful little package of seeds. I am definitely going to look forward to planting these, and the beautiful card you had made, I really love it. Thank you so much to Mary in Florida. Hi from Northern Alberta, Canada, Mary. Thank you again. I really appreciate the generosity and the time you took out of your day to send me a beautiful gift. So thank you. And Chaz is going to be, he hasn't been home yet, but once he comes home and he sees this, I'm sure he's going to be really excited to grow them as well. So let's get started onto some seeds. The first seed that I'm talking about today, it is a early season cabbage. Now, lots of people have not tried early season cabbage, but this variety is one that will impress the quality. It's very tender. It's a very beautiful cabbage for using as fresh eating, or for, you could even make it into sauerkraut. You can preserve it if you wish by pickling it. This is a very versatile cabbage. I've used it in all ways possible. I've even kind of made stuffed cabbage with it before. They're not as tight of a head, but they are very, very sweet and tasty, and they mature really rapidly. So this variety is called Tierra. This variety takes 45 days from transplant. So you do have to start your seeds indoors, and you want to move them out when they have some true sets of leaves. Usually I put mine out after about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the size. And I'll put them out in my garden, and I'll either put them under a row cover or I'll put them inside my greenhouse. I don't put them out exposed to the elements simply because we have a lot of pest pressure here that I don't want to expose them to. And in your area you may not have pest pressure, but I do have a lot of it here. But these usually I will put them out about 4 weeks after they have been started inside. I have actually experimented and planted these as a direct sow, and they did grow. They were just way behind, and that being way behind the others put them into a time of the year where it was a little bit warm for them, and they did succumb to some disease and pest. But if you can get these seeds started, these tiaras are amazing. 45 days, you're harvesting cabbage. 45 days, you're harvesting cabbage. And this can produce a lot of food for your family. Also, you can also use the outer leaves to feed your livestock, such as pigs or chickens. They really love this stuff. So it is a great seed to have for a early season, cool season vegetable in the brassica family that you would want to put in your collection and grow food quickly. Fast food. So this seed I get from West Coast Seed and Veseys. I've ordered from both places in the past, and they both have them. Some of them come pelleted. You can choose and decide which ones you would prefer. This cabbage also stores very well. It stores very well. I stored this up to 3 months in the summertime. I would have tried to store it longer, but we ate it all. So you can also hold these out in the field. So if you're not going to get time to harvest it, it's not going to split, it's not going to start wilting. You can hold it out in the field and harvest it as you need. So that's why these are actually really good market cabbages here. A lot of the places that have farmers markets, a lot of farmers and homesteaders, they do market these, and you know, these for early crops in the spring and summer. And so they're really they're very hardy, and they're just a very good seed. Some people say that this variety is the best variety for making sauerkraut because the leaves are so tender and they're very thin. Like it's a thin type of cabbage. This is a lot of people that I know that do a lot of canning and pickling. They and fermenting. They use this as their preferred cabbage. Early season cabbage for making sauerkraut, and then the long season cabbage that you can grow, they use those for like making cabbage rolls to preserve in their freezer. So this is the one that most people in my area that I know, they use this one for making sauerkraut. Now the next variety is also cool season, and it is also a brassica, and it is a major producer, one that made me go wow, this thing performs. I love this one so much. I use the stems, I use the heads of it, I use the leaves, I use this plant. The whole thing is delicious. I will grow this year after year after year, and it produces fast. This is called Green Magic broccoli. Now, 60 days from starting, or 60 days from transplant. So one of the things that can be confusing to new gardeners especially is that when a lot of seeds say how long they take, you have to consider that you have to add on time for how long it grows inside. So broccoli is one of the ones that you want to start as a seed inside, grow it on no more than 4 weeks usually, and then you can transplant it out. So these ones, when I planted these out, they were right on the nose. They were 60 days from transplant date that I was able to harvest off of these plants, and then they grow side shoots, and you have a lot of really good food. The flavor was delicious. I highly recommend this variety if you are growing in a short season where your temperatures really fluctuate in the spring. I really highly recommend this, and the insects didn't really bother this one as much as I thought they would. However, if you have guinea fowl, they will try to get a hold of this stuff. They love this broccoli. I don't know what it is about this particular broccoli, but guinea fowl and this broccoli, it's a nightmare. They do very much love this particular variety, and they go after it. It doesn't matter what you got protecting it, they will try to get it if you have guineas. So just saying from my own experience, they love it too. So this is a hybrid, and this one is bred to be bolt resistant. So the reason this is a really good variety is because it can handle cool temperatures, but it can also handle some heat. And it's quick, like it's really fast to grow. So, in 60 days, even if you have like a hot season, you could probably have a succession of this broccoli. If you have a long spring season, before it gets too hot, you could probably do this. And you can also do this in the fall planting, as a fall planting, and have a really good harvest. If you say, for example, you were late getting your seeds started, this variety would probably perform very well for a fall succession in some of your climates. So this is one that it's a true contender. You definitely would want to have this in your seed collection for something as a fast food. This one is also bred to be resistant to powdery mildew. And so it's very strong plant. This is definitely one that withstands a lot. Like, it stands out against the other ones because not a lot of things phase it. The heat doesn't phase it. It's not going to bolt. It's producing like crazy. This is one, you know, even if you are doing a market garden, this is one you might want to consider looking at to speed up production. The flavor of this one is really delicious, but the other thing that I really love is the color. It is a blue-green broccoli, and I just love the way it looks. It just looks so good when you walk in down the row of your broccoli. It's a beautiful plant to grow. The Green Magic broccoli I order, this particular variety I have purchased from West Coast Seeds. Now, this is one of my absolute favorites. I love this stuff. It produces, it's for very high production, very fast. In 25 days, you can feed your family with the most nutrient-packed food, a superfood, basically. So this is spinach. This is called Seaside spinach. I grew this in the spring in ridiculous cold temperatures. I had so many people criticizing about how I was growing this stuff, and it thrived. It did great. This spinach is no joke. It means business. Whether you're growing for your family, whether you are growing for market, this stuff is a workhorse, and you need this in your shopping basket when you're doing your seed shopping. This is one of the contenders you must have. I must have more. I love this stuff so much. It's a baby spinach, so you can cut it and it'll come back again. It is literally bred for production. It is a high volume, high production type of cool season spinach, baby spinach. Warmer places that you guys are in, you can overwinter this and just keep harvesting under row cover. It will survive. I had it survive under row cover in a cold frame greenhouse. Under cover, it survived negative 25 degrees Celsius evenings, and it was negative 35 degrees Celsius wind chills. It survived just being covered up, and I was growing it in grow bags, and it did fine. It froze, but it just like thawed out, and it's like, okay, let's get back to growing. It's amazing. This stuff is amazing. And it produces a lot of food. We were sick of spinach. I freeze dried it. We use it in smoothies. I've dehydrated it. I've frozen some. We use it in smoothies all the time. I put it in soups. I put it in hamburger to disguise from the guys when they're sick of eating greens. I put it in there to trick them, and it works really good. It has a beautiful flavor. Highly recommend. It's 20 days, 20 to 25. I was harvesting in I think it was 17 days. I was harvesting this last spring. So if you want fast food that you can grow a lot of, quickly, nutritious, this stuff, Seaside spinach, is one of the ones that you would want. And it helps you stretch your, if you want to make salads or you want to make a smoothie, different things. If you're foraging for berries and you have a bunch of berries frozen and you want to stretch that out and get some more nutrition, you can freeze this stuff and add it as well. Very versatile. It's great in eggs. That was my favorite way to do it as well, is scrambling it up in eggs. Beautiful stuff. So I get mine from West Coast Seeds. This is if you're homesteading, this one, guys, definitely this one. Seaside spinach, you direct sow it. You don't have to start these inside. You don't have to transplant them. In fact, they hate being transplanted. So the optimal temperature for these to germinate, it needs to be 5 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius, right in there. So that is 45 to 70 degree Fahrenheit is when the optimal time to grow the spinach. So, you know, as long as you're not getting over 70 and you can hold that for at least 30 days, you're gonna have big harvests. When they say how long does it take to mature, it takes 20 days from direct sow. So from putting the seed in the soil to the time you're eating it is 20 to 25 days. One of the tricks with spinach is if you want to grow baby spinach, you want to keep the plants close together. If you want big leaves and like larger leaf spinach, then you keep the plants like more space, like you want 2 or 3 inches between your plants so then they can get bigger. But if you're just doing baby spinach and you're just cutting it all down and then letting it regrow, then you can make them, keep them really close together and they will just continue on. You want to keep on harvesting this because spinach does bolt if you don't keep up with keeping it harvest, and so that means like with this stuff you have to harvest at least once a day, if not twice a day, because it grows so quickly. So you know, this is something you would want to keep up on as well to make sure that it doesn't start to bolt and it's going to continue to flush in. And you want to do successions. You want to at least start every 2 to 3 weeks another round so that you have a long season of spinach to either preserve or to eat fresh. So yeah, West Coast Seeds. Seaside spinach at West Coast Seeds. Now we're gonna go into the warm season varieties of vegetables from seed that I recommend. This one is one that I've grown and I've talked about it and raved about it for years. It is called Purple Peacock. Now, Purple Peacock is not the most earliest variety of bean that you can produce or grow, but it does really, really well in climates that are like mine, where we have 100 days to grow. We have a 100-day growing season and it seems to produce more. It's the slow and steady one that once it gets established, you have so much food. You are in a climate like mine, the Purple Peacock bean, hands down, it is a heavy producer. It yields so much food. So it is a 70-day to harvest from seed. So you don't start this inside. You could potentially start your beans indoors and then transplant them out and get a head start, but I don't feel like you need to do that with this particular variety. You do need to have trellising for it because it is a climber. But once it's established, you just literally you grab handfuls of beans and just throw them in your basket. It's literal handfuls, and they're so easy to harvest. They're very, very beautiful, and we call them the magic beans because they are purple, but when you put them in hot water, they turn from purple to green, which is kind of magic, and kids love that, seeing it change color when they're helping and learning cooking and stuff like that. So they are a very nice bean. They do have a string, but when you harvest them early enough, you don't have to, they don't have it, it's unnoticeable. So I usually harvest these quite tender, quite young, and within a couple days old. They don't take long to grow whatsoever. Once they flower and they get pollinated, you got beans. If they get really, really big and you do have to take the string out of them, they don't change flavor too much either. They're really delicious. They don't get woody. They work good for pickling. They work good for preserving. I really love these beans preserved. I blanch them and freeze them. I've also used them, I freeze dried them, and they work really, really good. They do still change color. So if you freeze dry them raw and then you put them in water, they will go from purple to green. They still do that. So it's really fun to see that too. This is my tried and true preference for a fast growing crop that is a warm season. I do know that they can tolerate some cool temperatures. I have had these beans produce well into our fall after our first frost. So as long as they're semi-protected, they will continue to grow. If they do freeze and get touched by frost, they're likely not to recover, but they can actually handle pretty cool temperatures and produce like crazy still. I've had really good luck with these ones. Every year that I've grown them, they've surprised me, they've shocked me, they've impressed me, and I highly recommend this variety. I get mine from West Coast Seeds, but I do believe that they are a very common variety. And they might not be the best of flavor, they may not be the prettiest bean or the fanciest bean. They are gorgeous, but they are workhorses, and that's the point of it, growing lots of food in the shortest amount of time. The next warm season vegetable that I recommend, that I have had success with, is a 55-day cucumber called Early Fortune cucumber. Now, this variety is a very heavy producer, and it is one that you can use for like as a snacking cucumber, but it also is really good for pickling. It makes really good pickles, and I prefer to pick them before they get too large, but some people prefer to pick them when they are larger and then make like the icicle pickles, or slice them up to make like sweet and sour pickles, bread and butter pickles. These are a really great one for doing preservation and for just fresh eating, to have a really, as a snack, or to chop up to put in your salad. They're very versatile, and I think that they produce very well. They're easier to grow. I struggle with growing cucumbers here. I don't know what it is. They should be so easy to grow, but I suck at it. And these ones are the ones that I've had enough success where I actually could get a few jars of pickles out of it. And I've been trying to grow cucumbers for years. I actually order my cucumbers from the Hutterite colony to make pickles because I suck at growing pickles so bad. But these ones were ones that I have actually had great success with. Every time I've grown them, they literally, they actually impress me. So highly recommend this variety. Now, 55 days is from transplant. Usually in our climate, we don't transplant them. Cucumbers don't tend to like to be transplanted in my experience. They just don't like it. They seem to, I don't know if they shock because it's too cold at night. Here in our climate, I find the best success with these ones is to direct sow them. When I try growing these particular varieties in my climate, when we did do the recommended of transplanting out to have like cucumbers in 55 days from transplant, it didn't happen. The best way to get close to that, I think it was 60 days, 55 to 60 days, somewhere in there from harvesting, is actually from when I direct sowed it. So it actually, it speeds up the process, in my experience with this particular variety, to direct sow them instead of transplanting them. So if you are experimenting, maybe you want to do both. Maybe you want to do some starts inside and do some direct sow and see which one works better in your climate. I think that they need to go through the process of growing without too much stress. And in my environment, it is very stressful to be a transplant because our climate is very extreme up here in this part of Canada. So these are a white spine slicer. They are not like marketed as a pickling cucumber. They are a slicer. So they're just an all-around perfect vegetable because you can do all the things with them. They're like a jack of all trades. They produce, and they're not fussy. They work better when you neglect them. As long as you're harvesting them and as long as the bees can find them, they're gonna produce for you. These ones, I find they work the best when you let them grow on the ground and not have them going up a trellis, but that's just me. That's how I have found the best success with these, and that's how most people here in my area grow them. These are actually a producer, or like a market gardener's cucumber. So they are meant for production, which is, when you have a homestead or you're gardening, you should be growing stuff in your garden that is for production, unless you're just doing it as a hobby. If you're doing food production or growing food for food production for preservation, this is one of the contenders that you would want to have in your seed stash. Tongue twister today. Wow. Well, you can't just completely neglect them. You do have to make sure that they have, protection from extreme weather, protection from drought. So you want to make sure they have water and moisture, fertilize them. And you also want to make sure that if you see any signs of pest damage, that you get on top of it immediately. Otherwise, they are very sensitive. Just like any cucumber, they are very sensitive to, disease and pest damage. I've learned that cucumbers just can't handle stress. The other thing that you can do with cucumbers, sometimes they get powdery mildew and stuff. So one of the remedies that you can do to prevent powdery mildew is you can take 1 teaspoon of baking soda and mix it with 1 quart of water and put a drop of dish soap in there. So like a Dawn dish soap or something that is gentle, that isn't going to harm the environment too badly. And then you put that in a spray bottle, shake it up, and then spray it on your plants. And that will prevent you from having powdery mildew start taking out your crop. And that is something that I find very, very helpful when you are trying to stay away from using harsh chemicals and, doing some prevention in pest and disease control, because this actually also works for some pests that like to attack your plants as well. So there's that. The next one is a zucchini. Gotta love zucchini. Warm season crops like zucchini, they're my favorite because they are so versatile. You can use zucchini in so many ways when you're cooking on the homestead, when you're cooking from scratch. You can use it in canning. You can use it freeze dried. It bulks up stuff so much year round. Zucchini is one of the most important crops in my homestead kitchen because it is one of the main ingredients that creates volume to allow our foods, our staple foods, to be extended by using zucchini to bulk it up. It's a great source of nutrition as well. So zucchini 100% is one of my favorite ways. It grows so vigorously. Now, the one that I really recommend for growing it's called desert zucchini. And the one I get my seeds for this particular variety at West Coast Seeds, and I do think it's available at other places. But this one is a 50-day zucchini, and I direct sow. I don't transplant my zucchini, I direct sow it, and I find that it works the best. It seems to produce food much faster than if I was to transplant it. Even if I'm putting it out and hardening off my plants, our climate doesn't really tolerate, the zucchini doesn't really tolerate being transplanted in my experience. I find that direct sowing it has just as good of results. And it is usually in 50 days, I am harvesting this variety of zucchini. One year I actually had like a 45-day from this variety, which was surprising from a direct sown seed. It blew me away because I'm like, what variety is this? Is this wrong? But it just produced so quickly. The conditions were perfect for it to grow, and it did very, very well. And let me tell you, you had zucchini. There was zucchini. We had zucchini every single day. There was multiple zucchinis. You don't need a lot of plants when it comes to growing this stuff. You can use a few plants will produce a ton of food fast. So one of my top ones for fast food we have an issue with in our climate is we have usually when the zucchini starts flowering, we usually have a lot of, in our area, people are spraying overhead with planes. And we go through this 2-week window where there's not a lot of pollinators around that time. So what I find to do is beneficial to make sure we get a head start on our crops is when the plants start to push their blooms, I do make sure I try to pollinate them by hand. So I take the stamen and we make zucchini babies, very, very delicately make zucchini babies in the garden, and that's how I get a head start on them with those early buds, so they don't fall off and we don't lose them. But you may notice temperature, if the nights are too cool, lack of calcium in the soil also affects this, and moisture. So sometimes pH can do this as well, where you're just gonna get all female flowers or all male flowers. And sometimes what I will do is if I have another variety like a pumpkin or a squash of some kind growing and they have like male flowers and then the zucchini only has female flowers, what I'll do is I will cross-pollinate them by hand. Lots of people say you shouldn't do that because it's poisonous. I have not found research to support that. In fact, I found opposite of that. That's how hybrids are made, they're crossed. So I actually do that. But if, do your own research and have your own discretion. If you believe that cross-pollinating different types of varieties are toxic, that's entirely your own research to do. But in my experience, we've never been sick from it. So there's that. Or it won't make a difference unless you are saving the seeds. So cross-pollinating like a butternut squash with a zucchini to get it pollinated, to make sure that something is produced, it doesn't do anything to, like, you're not going to see a cross until the seeds that are saved for the next year will be what you get as a cross. And it doesn't affect that plant when you cross it that way in that season. It's the next season. So as long as you're not saving your seeds, you're not going to have a hybrid crossed with whatever you're pollinating it with. It doesn't affect it. So that's just something that I do to make sure I have an early production when we don't have the pollinators that are typically non-existent in our area because of overhead spraying. So that's just what I do. Now, my favorite warm season crop, corn. I love corn. Editing Christy here. I cannot believe I forgot to tell you the name of the corn while I was doing the video. So the name of the variety is Allure corn. Can't believe I did that. And I love that I can grow corn. So the variety that I'm gonna share with you is one that preserves really well. You can can it, you can freeze it, you can freeze it whole, you can shuck it and blanch it and freeze it that way. Versatile. This stuff is good. It is a large ear. It's not a miniature variety. It is a full-on, delicious, extremely sweet, like extremely sweet corn. It is actually sugar enhanced corn, so it has been messed with. It's a hybrid seed. It is delicious. Just grow it. Just grow it, grow it, grow it. You won't regret it. It is bicolor, so it's a yellow and white bicolor. The cobs of corn, when you peel the outside off, they're absolutely beautiful. They're a beautiful look. Like they're what homegrown corn should look like. They remind me of peaches and cream, but more flavor and faster, much faster to grow. So these ones are ready in 75 days. 75 days. Now, you do have to start them inside because that 75 days is specifically from transplant. But when you start your seeds, your corn seeds, you want to start them no more than 2 weeks before you plant them out. They don't like being planted in, like, they grow super fast, so they don't like being put into cell trays and kept there for more than 2 weeks. So I, like clockwork, I pick the day that I'm going to be planting my corn outside, and I start those seeds 2 weeks before that date, and it's written in stone. I don't I could leave it like a couple days if I had to because of weather, but I don't leave it in for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I put them out 2 weeks after they've been started, written in stone. And then they don't go through this process of shocking. They don't go through this process of stunting. They just grow and they produce in 75 days. It's like clockwork. Last year I had some issues with it, a little bit of issues with the timing on it, but we had some pest issues that had like tarnished plant bugs that really started to affect it, and we had some cooler weather that was unexpected, so it did give it a little bit of it stunted it just slightly. But in previous years that I've grown it, I've had no issues and it produced beautifully. And I have so much corn. Each one of these corn stalks will produce 2 to 3 cobs in that season, in that 75 days. If you go 85 days, you're at least harvesting at least 2 cobs per plant. It's a really good producer. One of the things that I learned about this corn is that if you are having a dry spring or a dry summer, you do have to supplement water this vigorously, because it will prevent, like especially early when it's being pollinated, because if it doesn't have enough moisture during pollination process, it will not fill in the whole, like the whole cob will not fill in properly, and it'll be kind of funny looking. It'll be like all sporadic, and it'll just be very ugly corn. So in order for it to have, you know, uniform, beautiful, produce how it's supposed to, it does need to have a good amount of water. Not over-watering by no means, but if it's dry, you do have to get out there and water it. It's not going to be tolerating droughts very well. It doesn't like dry feet, and it doesn't like wet feet. It's like high maintenance. It likes perfect feet. Now, you don't have to start these indoors from seed. You can actually direct sow these, and they will germinate in cooler temperatures. They're one of the only corn that is bred to do this. They're actually the first organic synergistic hybrid that is available to home growers. So it's more genetically altered than I probably would like to, but it is an organically derived variety of this hybrid. So you can do your own research. I'm not going to get into it. I don't know a lot about it. I have no opinion. I love the corn. It works good. My chickens love it. When you know, it's great. It's just a great corn. 8-inch long cobs on it. You just can't go wrong with this stuff. It's great. But you can direct sow it earlier in the season. If you're in a warm place, you could get that head start by pushing it ahead. And it is resistant to a lot of the diseases that corn is susceptible to. In my experience in our area though, it did not tolerate the tarnished plant bugs very well. It did not like them. And it did affect them in some way. But they were able to, I gave them a good fertilization, I gave them some good compost tea, and with that they were able to boost their immune system and kind of repel them bugs on their own. So this plant, it does tolerate a lot of crap that most other corn varieties won't in our climate. So this is a fast food variety that you want on your list. Oh, I should mention, this seed I have purchased from West Coast Seeds and Veseys seeds as well. Next warm season variety I want to talk about is a slicer tomato. Not a cherry tomato, a slicer tomato, like a beefsteak slicer tomato. This tomato is amazing. I love it. Now, I ordered these particular seeds. I order them from one place and one place only that I order from, and that is Tomato Fest in the United States of America, and they have a variety of all kinds of early season tomatoes, just like this one, that are heirlooms, and they were developed for cool climates and fast growing. But this is the one I'm going to talk about, even though there are other varieties like it that are much quicker to produce fruit and much more, they can produce way more fruit than what this one can, or that are better producers than this one. This is the one that I have had experience with in my climate. So this is the one we're going to talk about today. So the variety is called Beaver Lodge Slicer. It was actually developed here at the Beaver Lodge Research Center here in northern Alberta, Canada. My friend Jenna lives there. Hi Jenna, I hope you're doing well. Anyways, this tomato, it can handle so much. Like, it blows me away. I cannot tell you, if you have not grown a variety like this before, you need to, it outperforms so many other varieties. Way better than Early Girl. Early Girl is one that is common here in short season. Early Girl has nothing compared to this tomato. Like, Early Girl, don't even think about Early Girl. Early Girl is like blah. So this one is much better. This one is a determinant, meaning it does not vine. it is one that stays in a short bush. So you can actually, they don't get very big either. Like they kind of can get big, but they literally do stay fairly smaller. For a beefsteak tomato, you would think that it would be this massive plant. When this is blooming or producing, it is just solid tomatoes. Like there's so much food. They are heavy producers. So determinate tomatoes, they don't produce all year long. They grow, and then they bloom, and then they get pollinated, and then they put all of their energy into ripening those fruits, and their whole thing of them is like all full of fruit, and then they just peter out. So you get a big flush of fruit, and that's really good if you're canning, if you're doing preservation, those kind of things. So if you want something that's going to be a workhorse for, a great tasting tomato that you can use as a slicer, you can use it as for making sauce, you can use it for canning, you can freeze it, you can freeze dry it, you can do all the things you want to do with it. This is a great tomato. It makes great salsa. I've used it for everything. I really love this one. And so I do start it 3 to 4 weeks inside. I've started it 6 weeks, but it doesn't really need it. I would say like 4 weeks. I start my seeds, and it doesn't stay inside any longer than that, and then I transplant it out. And you'll be harvesting fruit in 50 to 54 days. Yes, 50 days, 54-day tomato. This is crazy for a beefsteak. And like they're not little tomatoes. Most of the time with these determinate tomatoes that are really fast producers, they're cherry tomatoes, or like they're small. These ones can sometimes, if it's really cool, I did find that when the temperatures get really cool, the tomatoes do stay a little bit smaller. But when it's a warm season, when you have a really nice warm season, the fruit is huge, and like huge. Like I've had fruit like that on average. All of them were like that, and like get like 100 of them off of one plant, like these ginormous tomatoes off of one plant, just boom, already at one time, and perfect for canning. So I highly recommend the Beaver Lodge slicer. There's a bazillion different types of tomatoes that you could grow instead of this one. You could grow this on the patio. You could grow it in a pot, because again, you don't need the trellising. You would need like one of those tomato cages, and it would bush into that, and you could harvest off of that. But perfect tomato to produce a lot of food quickly in a very short amount of time. The next seed I'm going to talk about is actually from West Coast Seeds. Again, is where I purchased it, and it is not a warm season. It is not a cool season. It is an all season. You can grow this in the spring, in the summer, and the fall. It doesn't matter. It is typically grown as a cool season. It has a cool, like it tolerates cool temperatures, but it will handle heat. It handles everything. I'm actually growing some of this right now in my hydroponic tower, and I'm also growing some of this right now in seed starting trays that I'm harvesting and eating in salads and eating fresh throughout the winter. We've been grazing on it all winter long. This is a really great variety. Yeah, I did it again. Joy Choy. It is called Joy Choy. Highly recommend this one. It's not as vigorous as some of the other types of foods that you could grow. Like this would be the one that would be, it produces lots of food and it produces good food quickly, but it's not probably the most efficient use of space, but it's definitely a contender that I would put as a fast food. Joy Choy is a brassica, but brassicas are usually like a cool season, but this one is all season. So you do succession, so you have food all season long with these ones, which is, something that's a little bit different for brassica. If you want to have brassica, the pests don't seem to bother this one in my climate as much as they would of other brassicas. And so I highly recommend this one as well for a fast food. It matures in 50 days. So if you direct sow this one, you can transplant it, but it does stunt it. So you do want to direct sow this one in cool soil, warm soil, any type of soil. It doesn't matter, it will grow. And it's 50 days. You're harvesting, you're gonna cut that head right off and harvest it in 50 days if you're doing it that way. But if you're gonna be doing it like what I'm doing in like a hydroponic tower or in a seed tray in your basement under a grow light or on your countertop, you just kind of take the outer leaves off as it grows, and it'll just keep growing. That's how I do it anyway. This is a really easy thing to grow if you are a beginner gardener. This is one that it's very rewarding, it's very delicious, and it kind of feels like it's a delicacy. You're creating something that you can't buy in the store. You're growing something that you, like, well, in our store anyway, we can't buy nothing in our store. But this is one that you can't buy one like this that has the same flavor, that has the same crispness. It's just a really, really nice vegetable. It works good in soups, it works good in stir fries, and it works really good in salads. So you have such versatility and variety with this stuff. But it's an all season, one of my top 10 really good stuff. The best for last, another all season superstar, ready in 30 days. I love this so much. If you've been following me on Instagram and you've been following me on YouTube, you know you've heard me talk about this so much. This lettuce is incredible, incredible. I cannot tell you how much it has impressed me. I love this stuff. Like, I love it. I love it. I love this stuff. Love. Okay, so it is a 30 to 40, or like a 35 to 40 day lettuce. I'm growing it in hydroponics. I'm growing it in fish nitrates. So what does that mean? When you have fish and you take the water out to do a water change, and there's all of the nitrates that are in the water from the fish pooping, that's fish nitrates. And I'm using that to grow it in, and it loves it. It grows really, really well. It doesn't take a lot of input of light. It grows in low lights, in your environments like your kitchen countertops. It grows in grow rooms. Like, it grows. It's fast and furious, and it grows and it produces, and it's amazing. So if you do not have this seed variety, you're missing out. I do see that West Coast Seeds is the only one I've been able to see have this blend. I think it is an exclusive blend to West Coast Seeds. I've been looking for it. I can't find it anywhere else, just them. And I did see they are sold out, but they do have a notify me option. So when it does come back into stock, you can do that. And I will link that below for you so that you know where to find it. 30 days to have lettuce, and it grows in trays. I have these seedling trays that I filled with dirt with worm castings, and I put the seeds in there, and I put some starts in there, and it's growing, and I'm harvesting, and we're eating salads. Like, we eat more salads in the wintertime growing this stuff than we do in the summer. I'm gonna be honest. So amazing, amazing stuff. This is the one. Top one, like, this is number one, the best lettuce, the best seed that creates a lot of volume and really, really quickly. This is my number one. Impresses me so much. The cut and come again, things that you can harvest and grow back, like a radish. A radish is really fast. It'll grow really quickly, but you pull it and it's done. You don't get anything more other than that one crop from it. This lettuce, it grows in 35 days. You chop it, it grows back, you chop it, it grows back, you chop it. And it's like this cycle, and it doesn't take 30 days to grow again. It takes like 7. And so you're getting this crop from this plant over and over and over and over, and it produces so much food. So highly recommend this one if you can get your hands on some. And if not, I'm sorry, better luck next time. Get your orders in early, because this variety is no joke, the best one on the market. I can't even say. I'm like almost out of seeds. I need to, like, I'm panicked because I don't want to not have any for next year. They're so good. You'll notice that in this list, I did not include stuff like peppers and eggplants and different things like that. In my climate, I do struggle with production, but I will tell you as a bonus, My favorite pepper to grow when it comes to the quickness and the, what's the word? Vigorousness of the production. My favorite pepper is called Hungarian hot wax pepper. It grows really, really well. And for bell peppers, the one that I've had in my experience, the one that has had really high yields for me is a California Wonder. Now, our client, like, I didn't include them because you have to start them so early. They require so much, and they're not really an efficient. Peppers are honestly not efficient for somebody in northern Alberta to be trying to grow to create food sustainability from seed. It's not practical. There's other things that do better, like brassicas and such. So there may be other people that have their top 10 lists that they could share with you, some of the more warmer season. I live in a cool climate, so the focus of my plants are more cool season, because I mean, I can literally get 3 crops, 3 successions of broccoli, 3 successions of cabbage, 3 successions of tomatoes, because there's such, or 2 successions of tomatoes, because they're so fast. In my 100 days, like, I can overlap them and have these big harvests, because they're producing food so fast that I'm able to fill my pantry, fill my freezer, and, you know, still go on that holiday with a kid. So work smarter, not harder. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this video was inspiring. I hope that you learned about some new varieties that maybe could help you become more efficient in your homestead garden. And anyways, happy growing. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.